talking about a black man who was more British than the British.
Olaudah Equiano, A.K.A. Gustavus Vassa, was born around 1745 in Isaka, that's an Igbo region in what's today southern Nigeria. Like millions of other Africans, Olaudah was kidnapped in Africa in 1756. He was originally captured by the Aro people, a rival tribe in the region, and then sold to European slave traders on the coast. He never saw his family again. He arrived at the coast, got put on a European slave ship, sent to Barbados, and then to Virginia. It was there that he got bought by Michael Pascal, who gave him the name Gustavus Vassa. For better or worse, when Lieutenant Pascal took Olaudah, A.K.A. Gustavus, with him to Europe, his metamorphosis began. He fought among the British ranks on land and sea during the 7 Years' War with France, Sweden, and Austria, being immersed in British military tradition. It was after his service in both the British Army and the Royal Navy that Lieutenant Pascal sent him to England to receive a British education. Things took another turn when Gustavus was 17. Lieutenant Pascal sold him to Captain James Doran, the captain of a privateer ship. In case you didn't know, a privateer ship is essentially a boat full of people who were paid by European governments to go rob their enemies. After that, he was sent to the Leeward Islands, where he was sold again to Robert King, a Quaker from Philadelphia. In case you didn't know who Quakers are, they were a Protestant group that started in England but came to the New World after they had friction with religious authorities there. They were a massive contradiction, initially becoming rich off the slave trade, then they used that wealth to start abolitionist movements around the world, and set up some of the first stations on the Underground Railroad, which explains why, even though Robert King owned Gustavus, he allowed him to buy his own freedom in 1766. After emancipation, Gustavus was finally free to develop into the British subject that people around him had been molding him into. He left the Caribbean, went to Georgia for a while, and then arrived in Plymouth, England.
We didn't come over on the Nina, the Pinta, and the whatchamacallit. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Landed right on top of us.
Metamorphosis continued. After moving to England on a permanent basis, Gustavus joined the Royal Navy, serving on board the HMS Racehorse for one of the first expeditions to the North Pole. Upon his return from the Arctic adventure, Gustavus got heavily involved in the ever-expanding British Abolitionist Society. Throughout the 1780s, Gustavus established himself as the most famous black man in England. He traveled throughout Europe to speak to abolitionist congresses. He was appointed commissary for the black poor going to Sierra Leone, a bureaucracy for taking freed slaves to Africa, making him the first black civil servant in Great Britain. And he married an Englishwoman named Susanna Cullen, who had 2 daughters with him. So imagine this black man, born in Africa, forged in the hardship of slavery, directed by the discipline of the Royal Navy, refined with a British education, focused from seeing war firsthand, wanting to do everything he could to help the world abolitionist cause. His next step? Write a bestseller. First published in 1789, the interesting narrative of the life of Olaudah Equiano was an instant hit, selling copies all over the world. Translated into several languages, this book helped galvanize the abolitionist movements in a multitude of countries. Its impact on the British Empire was even bigger than the impact of Uncle Tom's Cabin on the United States. Olaudah Equiano, A.K.A. Gustavus Vassa, died on March 31st, 1797, survived by his daughter Joanna Vassa, who inherited his 900-pound estate, which in today's money would be about 80,000 pounds. In an extremely rare form for black people at that time, his death was reported on in Europe, the United States, and throughout the British Empire. And even though there have been black people living in England since the 2nd century CE, there have been very few before him that had an impact that even came close to his.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed our presentation about Olaudah Equiano and our series about the 10 most influential black men you've never heard of. Join us in the future as we use extra innings to discuss the people who didn't quite make the list. This has been Brandon Thundar Sindos, the author of the Abortion Battle Book. Have a brand-tastic day, and we'll catch you next time.